You are now listening to the HBCU Wall Street podcast.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. We have a great guest for you on today. Of course, another well-accomplished Aggie. We have Mr. Frederick Ravin. Frederick X Ravin. How are you today, sir?
I'm good. Pleasure to be here.
Great. And so we love to highlight successful Aggies. We love to big up successful Aggies. So to tell you a little bit about him, he's a Durham native. He was on the dean's list. He's a 4-time HBCU graduate, including, of course, the illustrious North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University in 2003. He is an entrepreneur. He's a former school board member, a chief data officer, the chairman of Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People, Inc., a father of 3, a husband to 1, and a member of the amazing, the incomparable Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. Not that I'm biased to anything, but he's also a burgeoning philanthropist as the chairman of Ravin Family Foundation. So a lot of great things that this gentleman has done. Did I leave anything off?
No, you got it.
Great. Well, I appreciate having you here. Appreciate you taking the time to come talk with us. So what I love to do, of course, just want this to be a very informal conversation, but I want to start this off because with every Aggie, I ask this question. First, I just asked a couple of people, but I start asking everybody because it's interesting to see the responses. So when someone says the name G-Ho, what does G-Ho mean to you?
Oh man. So I'm coming from a party promoter aspect, right? And I think the first homecoming party I did was in 2008. This was the weekend that we did Friday night. We were at Green Street. We did a rooftop. Shout out to Denez Green, because I think he's actually the Aggie that termed the name G-Ho. A lot of people don't know that, or at least don't know that story, right?
Gotcha.
And then the Saturday night we did the Children's Museum. Shout out to PMG, Mitch McGraw, Nate Perry. We did it with them. Needless to say, they never let us come back there again. Had a few too many people out there in the city that night, but it was definitely something to remember. And it's like our own family reunion. You know, a lot of times the only time you really get to see your family is it's only twice. It's at a funeral or it's if you're at the family reunion. So being able to come back to Greensboro every year after year, and seeing people like you just saw them last week, right? But it seems like every time you come back, it's more love, it's more energy, because you don't know when's the next time you're going to see them or if you're going to see them again. So it's always a beautiful experience, and I'm happy to have been able to be part of it.
Good stuff. It's interesting. I just saw Denez J5, January 5th. We were hanging out at a cigar bar. There's several of us there, but just saw Denez. So shout out to Denez. But let me ask you this. It's every other Aggie I talk to, they use the word family reunion.
Yeah.
And it means so much to so many people. And of course, putting on events, I can definitely understand, Gio from that perspective, because even, this platform, Aggies Excel started from the first event we did back in 2019, where we just wanted to highlight successful Aggies and bring together business Aggies and entrepreneurial minded Aggies. So understand it from a business standpoint. Now, when it comes to G-Ho, you've told what it means to you. How would you describe that to someone that's never experienced it? Like somebody has never experienced G-Ho, what would you tell them?
I would tell them it is the state fair for Black people in North Carolina. Right. So
Gotcha.
I mean, you come out there when you go to the state fair, like you want to be around people, right? It's not too many people that go there don't want to be around people. You want to have the food that you want to eat, right? So they got that for you. It's a little bit more dope because you can have a few drinks while you're out there. But luckily the Aggies have taken over War Memorial Stadium. So they have the rides out there, the inflatables and stuff for kids to jump on. They have tons of vendors that are out there. You get entertained because we have a football game going on, right? We have the homecoming football game going on. And that entire weekend, you have concerts, you have parties. So, and the coronations, the comedy shows, the step shows, it is a state fair for Black people in North Carolina and on the East Coast and nationally for that matter. It is, you know, a lot of times you'll hear people talk, they'll throw around, you know, the best homecomings from a few different places. Some people will say Howard, you know, I've done stuff up there before. Howard is interesting because I remember I went there to an event, maybe it was around 2003, maybe 2002, 2003. And we're walking up there by Howard and you see like Cameron and Diplomats. They're in one of these stores shopping, and on the other side of the store you see Busta Rhymes. So it's DC, right? So it's
Mhm.
casual for people to be, you know, from New York to just drive through, because it's not that far down, and they'll stop and politic for a while.
Mm.
But Greensboro's a little bit different, right? It's a little, you're there for a reason. You're
You're
not
there for
there
a reason.
just, yeah, you're there for a reason. And you're there because somebody else invited you there, right? Disconnected, right? And they're like,
Mm.
look, you got to come down there with me. Just come one time. That's all you got to do. Come one time and you're sold on it. That's it.
Absolutely. That's all it takes. Like I've tried to explain to people, they're like, well, our homecoming is lit too. And I'm like, I don't think you understand. I mean, not taking anything away from your homecoming, but until you've experienced GHO, you don't understand. You don't
Yeah,
understand.
it's
I
it's
feel
it's different. It's
it's
different.
different. So let me ask you this. You've done some amazing things in your career, some very great things. When you step foot on campus for the first time at A&T, is this the career path you saw for yourself?
Nah, nah, not a chance, not a chance.
Gotcha.
So I was, and people will probably still tell you to this day, that I can do almost anything that I put my mind to. So when I first got accepted to A&T, it was industrial engineering, and then I switched from industrial engineering to computer science. This is
Okay.
before school even started yet, right?
Hmm.
School hadn't even started, and I switched to computer science. But then, right before I showed up to campus, I switched to electrical engineering. So I was doing electrical engineering for the first year, and my grades were good. It wasn't like I got anything, you know, below a B or anything else like that. But I did not realize how theoretical it was. And you know, I'm up at night, I'm doing all this work, and I'm like, yeah, this is cool. I don't grasp what I'm doing. I'm just answering problems, right? Because in my mind, I haven't figured out how it was going to be applied.
Hmm.
So I switched to business because I felt like business I knew. It was just second nature. And I went with marketing. And at that time I went with marketing because I looked at the courses and I was like, do I want to do this high level accounting work, or do I want to do marketing and focus on, you know, kind of what makes people tick? Because marketing is like the psychology of business. That's the way I saw it.
Hmm.
And I learned that, you know, you learn about the four P's, you learn about the C's, all these acronyms that help you understand what makes people do what they do and how do you get their attention. How are you able to strategically use, you know, channels to sell whatever you're trying to sell? And it just kind of opened my eyes to things that I wouldn't have learned otherwise, and I've kind of used that throughout my life. And it was interesting, for every business that I ever wanted to open, I got another degree, right? I had a purpose. I didn't know what that end goal was going to look like, but I knew that I needed to always arm myself,
Hmm.
for the next battle. And that's kind of why I'm one of these people that kept on going back to school, because I always had another idea, I always had another vision. And to me, I didn't look at it as really doing schoolwork. I looked at it as me being able to gain some insight and a competitive advantage, when I'm getting ready to step into the next battle. So, you know, I enjoyed it, but I definitely did not see in my life go in the direction that it went from the first day I stepped on campus.
Gotcha. Understand. And that's a lot of us. It's interesting that you said that. Me being an entrepreneur, if I could do it all over again, I say I probably would have majored, knowing what I know now, I either would have majored in marketing or psychology, because I'm like, I need to know how people think and why they think the way they do. And even going, I understand what you were saying, talking about going back to school and how you were arming yourself kind of for the next battle, so to speak. It's different when you go back to school, because when I went back to get my master's in organizational leadership, it was totally different. Like it was, my
Yeah.
mindset was different. I really came to learn. Like I really
Yeah.
wanted to
It was
understand,
different, right?
how is this going to make me money? How can I apply this immediately? So you're right. It's totally different.
Ambitious, audacious, creative, HBCU educated, fearless, original, unapologetic entrepreneur investor. That's a great shirt.
HBCUWallStreet.com.
So let me tell you a funny story about that.
All
So
right.
I didn't think about getting a second degree until after I graduated. So I graduated like maybe the next month. I went down there to the registrar's office, and I was like, I wanted to get, I wanted to get a double. I wanted to become a double major. Like, no, you got to do that while you're still in. So I was like, do I want to go through this legwork of doing this? So I decided not to. So what I did was I needed a job, and as anybody who's in Greensboro knows, American Express was right there. So I applied to work at American Express, and I didn't even get a call back, right? So me, marketing, knowing what I know and thinking I know what I know, I walked down there, had on my suit and everything. I was telling them, I was like, I'm trying to remember the line that I used. but basically what I said was, I applied for the job. I believed that I was supposed to be, get an interview for today. But I don't have any confirmation. And the guy, it was a black guy. He looked at me and laughed. He was like, "That's a good one. But you know what? You came down here with a suit on and everything. I'm gonna give you a chance." So
Wow.
that's how I got my way into it. And I was there for a year. I was in the top 10%. They wanted me to put me in this leadership track there. But I recognized like where my limitations may have been. So I said, I like dealing with this money, but not in the capacity of where I was. So I went back to school to get another degree. And that's why I came to Central, because I did finance. And while I was working on that, I was able to start working at Citigroup. They had these city financial offices. So I was a loan officer. I was learning everything about how mortgages, personal loans, car loans, and that lending work and how important credit is. So I'd already had experience working at American Express. Now I have experience working at a Citigroup, more or less on that lending side, and understanding what underwriters look for. And I was like, okay, so now I need to go for the MBA, right? And that's kind of how I went through that. In Citigroup, they were paying. They would give me like X amount of $1,000 per semester to go towards that. And money, I blew that. I had no clue where that money went, but that's another story. But it just kind of led me from one thing to the next, and I just kind of always kept my eyes open.
Oh, wow. That's great. Something you said is very important to me, but initiative is everything. You being able to take the initiative. Sometimes people, the first sign of a no or the first rejection, they're like, oh, well, I guess. No. Life happens favorably for people that make it happen to them. Quick story. And that's why I say I can resonate with that. Me coming into A&T, I didn't like high school. I did not like school. I was smart, but I didn't like school. At a 1200, on the SAT scores back then at the time, only took it once, no prep.
Yeah.
But my GPA, and this is crazy, I think it's the first time I may have said this on camera, my GPA coming out of high school was like a 1.9 something.
Ooh.
I didn't even qualify for A&T. I walked down to the registrar's office and said, I need to talk to someone. It happened to be at that time, it was Alan Hooker, I never forget, that was working in the registrar's office. He was like, well, the process is if you applied online. I was like, no, I need to talk to somebody. But he was like, okay, that's not the process, but you came all the way down here, I talked to you. I talked to him like, listen, this is my story. This is where I am. This is what it is, but I need to get into school. And I remember he took a step back and he looked at me, he said, listen, you're a very bold young man. He was like, but I'm going to take a chance on you, but I'm going to follow you. And I'm going to make sure you're doing what you're doing. Don't let me down. First semester there, I had like a 3.25. So I did well once I got in. But yeah, that initial, I was like, look, I need to talk to somebody because I don't technically qualify, but I need you to let me in.
It's like that for so many people. Like I was in the twos for a while. I was in the twos in high school. I was in the twos in my first degree with marketing. When I switched to finance, I graduated summa cum. If we're just looking at my department, it was like 3.7. I was second in my class when I graduated that year. But sometimes you need to have something to push you, right? I mean, I remember I took, what was it? They would only allow me to take 8 classes that one semester. That was 7 or 8, 21 hours, 7. And I got basically straight A's. I got 1B first time ever for that I even did that well. But I had a drive, you know what I mean? I wanted to finish up this semester and I wanted to be done with school, and I didn't have anything stopping me, no barriers. You know, I wasn't necessarily with my circle of friends at that point in time because I was back in school. Everybody else was grown. They were working 9-to-5 jobs. So I was just going to school, and that was probably one of the highest achieving semesters I ever had. So it's just different strokes for different folks. But if you get a fire lit up under you, you'll do the work.
Absolutely, man. That's the truth. That's crazy. Like, even with the synergy, my last semester at T, I had 21 hours and I had to take 21 hours. They were all core classes. Now, I graduated with a degree in electronics and computer technology, and I had a minor. I started in engineering physics. So I was taking high level physics and ECT classes with 21 hours to graduate. And at first, I had to get the dean's approval. At first, they was like, Rashad, what's going on with you? Like, are you crazy? And I had some things that happened that last semester, but I was determined. I was like, I'm getting up out of here. So I understand it's all about your mindset.
That's it.
Now, speaking of mindset, you've done some amazing things. Like me just reading through what you've done and what you've achieved already. So it seems like you've already hit, most of your life goals, when it comes to education, family, career. So when it comes to Frederick Ravin, what's next?
Giving back. You start to realize, older and older you get, older and older I get, you make more money, but you end up spending less, right? You become you're not as frivolous with your spending. For the most part now, like I don't buy much. My family gets me great gifts for Christmas and birthdays. So that's my clothes, that's my gear. I haven't had any growth spurts in the last, 2 decades. So, I can fit all my clothes. So, my family, we've come together for that Ravin Family Foundation Incorporated. And I'd say that we have 3 initiatives, right? One thing we're focused on is scholarship of being able to support Black and Indigenous communities, right? That is the focus, because that's who my children represent. And we've done that by providing scholarships to the student of the month at Durham Public Schools. Every month we give a check for $500. And Durham Public Schools is 75% minority majority school. So it represents us. It looks like us. I grew up in Durham. My kids are in Durham Public Schools, 2 out of 3 of them right now. One is only 1 year old. So that's where my heart is. We also support veterans. We support the Veterans Association of North Carolina. In addition to that, have a focus on the special needs community. So we've aligned with the partnership with them to be able to give back there. And I still do financial literacy and digital literacy. Like I said, I'm the chief data officer for the city of Durham, and one of the programs that we are actually kicking off, thanks to the support of our city council and city manager, is a digital inclusion program manager. We've been doing our interviews, and I'm not sure when the episode will be aired, but we have been able to hire our digital inclusion program manager, who will be working directly with me. So we're really looking at addressing that digital divide in Durham. So being able to really be able to invest back in the community, and to kind of see the tangibles, right? To see the look on kids' face when they're presented with a check for $500 and a scholarship certificate, to be able to address the needs of the community, because honestly, this digital divide is hurting us more than what we know. The lack of technical skills really stops us from even being able to apply for jobs. If you can't apply for an online job, you can't apply for, I'd say, 40 to 50% of jobs out here nowadays, because the ones that are paying the most, you're not going to be able to walk in there with a paper application. Being able to update your resume, right? Let me say that again, being able to update your resume. If you don't have a resume, you are limiting what your salary can be. I'll just be honest. Now, you may have some great personal relationships, and that's always another avenue. But if you don't have a resume, chances are you're going to be capped. I'll just be honest. So we have to remove those barriers, address that digital divide, and be able to invest back in the community. And if we're not doing it, who is, right? Because I assure you, nobody has time. I'd say 3 nights a week, I sleep less than 5 hours, because I'm doing my 9 to 5 job, which I have to do well at. Because I do so much outside of work, I can never let my outside work be the reason why my 9 to 5 work is penalized, because that's not going to go over well. And I support a city, right? The applications and the systems that keep a city running. We're ranked the third best technology city, digital city in the entire country within our size, 250 to 499,999 residents. So that means no days off. That means 24/7, 365. These systems have to stay running. So that's my vantage point. That's how I see things, and that's why it's important.
That's extremely important. What you said is so critical. The digital divide is scary when you look at our communities. When you look at the rate that technology is advancing, if we don't understand how important it is to educate ourselves, like education is so important. When I talk about education, I'm not even talking about strictly just school. I'm talking about understanding where the world is going, researching where the world is going, understanding what skills you're going to need tomorrow, understanding what skills are going to be prevalent or popular 10 years from now, working towards that. There's so many things that are about to happen in our world. I'm sure you know it in your position, but people, the wealth gap is going to become larger if we're not careful.
Yes.
The technology advancement is only going to benefit the wealthy. It's like the middle class is being squeezed, and either the middle class is going to become on that realm where they're heading towards the wealthy, or they're going to be squeezed down. Like it's so important. So I definitely agree with what you're saying. It's so important. And I commend you for everything you're doing. Like, I understand exactly what it is to be an entrepreneur and work a 9 to 5 and still have a family. And listen, it ain't for the weak. It is not for the weak. It's a lot. So I commend you with what you're doing. Something else. So this whole platform, Aggies Excel, we started this platform because we wanted to bring together, successful Aggies and highlight successful Aggies. We had the first Aggies Excel event back in 2019. But we're in a position where we want to help to give back. You talked about, philanthropy and things of that sort. And that's one of the premises of this whole movement, is to be able to do what we do to highlight successful Aggies, to connect Aggies with other Aggie entrepreneurs, but also be able to give back to make our school and our systems and our communities so much better. Just real quickly, when it comes to philanthropy, other than the obvious, just expound a little bit on why that's so important to you.
So one of the other organizations I work with is called the Durham Committee on Affairs of Black People Incorporated. It's a nonprofit foundation that is the arm of the Durham Committee on Affairs of Black People. And a lot of times we'll just say the general body and the Inc. So the general body was established back in 1935 and the Inc. was established in 2014. And it was really to advocate for the Black citizenry in Durham, right? And Durham is historic for many reasons, the home of Black Wall Street and everything else. We're probably one of the only large cities in the state or in the country that have a Black mayor, have a Black chair of the Board of Commissioners, have a Black chair of the school board, have a Black sheriff, police chief, city manager, county manager, DA, public defender, and the list goes on, right? The clerk of courts and everybody else. So when you see that and you see the power that we wield, and within this nonprofit, we received a grant from Duke Energy, and that grant was for like $25,000, and it was to provide micro grants to Black and minority-owned businesses in Durham, focused on this Felver Street corridor, which is where Central is, and our East Durham corridor, 2 historic parts of Durham. And so what we've been doing is we've been giving $1,000 back to these small businesses and providing them with that digital training. We partner with Microsoft. So it provides these small companies with a bit of capital, right? Because systemic oppression is real, and a lot of them have been starved for many reasons, right? But in addition to that, is to also provide them with additional skills, and using that digital literacy training to be able to address that, hopefully help strengthen them, gives them some additional competitive advantages over whoever they may be competing with. And it does more for our community. Ultimately, we want to be able to increase the amount of livable wage jobs and to the point where the jobs become prosperous, right? Because we want people to be able to live a quality life. If you're working 2 or 3 jobs, a lot of times that's not the quality of life that you're looking for, because then how much time do you have to spend with your family, right? So you have to be able to balance that live, work, and play, and not just have it with work. So the goal is, I've been fortunate in life. I'd say that I've probably been middle class my entire life. But that doesn't mean that all of my relatives have been in that same boat. So I recognize it, right? So if you can, why don't you? And my thought is, if you can and you're not, then in some respects you're selfish, right? Because it's more so about you. So I'm not one of the people where I'm the best at one-on-one engagements. I definitely do them. Like, if anybody asks me for it, I'm doing it. But like, that's probably why I've never just been like an individual big brother, big sister, because I recognize that I recognize where my strengths and my weaknesses are. And one of my strengths is actually working as a bridge builder and working with other organizations to put these things in place to be able to help larger organizations. So I think that if everybody lends towards their strength and we're working collectively to meet our end goal, it's going to lift us all up.
Great, great. Well, that's amazing. Again, I commend you for the work you're doing. And I'm sure you already know, but what you're doing is going to ripple through the lives of families for generations to come. So I commend you, Black man. Thank you for doing what you're doing. I appreciate your time with just, sharing a little bit of who you are with the world, and sharing a little bit of who you are with the Aggie family and what you have going on and what you're doing. So thank you for being a part. Is there anything else you want the people to know about you? Any projects or anything you're working on that you want to bring light to?
We have we are working on some events that are going to be going on in Baltimore for CI weekend. Danaz will be working with them in Next Level DC. A Party Life, working with Quadri Heath, who's another A&T graduate. For Vision, they're actually a group out of DC. But they represent a few HBCUs themselves. So always being able to work and partner with other HBCU-based organizations. But the one thing that I would really like to kind of hone in on is I would love to see you all be able to do kind of like a commemorative edition once you all have your 40th. Give us all a heads up and have us do a challenge, right?
Okay.
Ask what we're all doing, but have us do a challenge. Have us direct our efforts towards, maybe all making a donation to A&T. A lot of times we don't do stuff because we're not ags. But if you put us on a challenge and you created it, turn it into a competition, we're gonna be there.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a great idea. Great idea. So we're gonna start brainstorming about that. So I appreciate you, sir. I appreciate your time. Thank you for being on. Again, kudos to you for what you're doing in the community, in your own life, with your family, in your career. Proud of what you're doing, man. So keep it going.
Thank you. And if I can help again, y'all just let me know. I'm there.
All right, will do. Well, everybody, we're gonna sign off. This has been another episode of Aggies Excel podcast, and we'll see you soon.